This week on the Stogie Geek Show, we celebrate episode 150. We're going to do a Stogies of the Week, a Debonair Ideal. We're going to interview Christian Aroa from CLE Cigars and close things out by interviewing none other than Jonathan Drew from Drew Estate. So stay tuned. If you created the Aging Room Small Batch Cigar line, the highest rated boutique cigar brand of our times, what would you do next? Well, if you're Rafael Nodal from Boutique Blend Cigars, you would combine your three most important passions of your life, Cuba, music, and cigars, and create a new classic, La Boheme Cigars. La Boheme is Rafael's take on the golden age of Cuban cigars. La Boheme is a sophisticated blend of extra-aged and hard-to-find tobaccos from the Dominican Republic. A medium-bodied cigar, rich in flavors reminiscent of the island he left 35 years ago in a small boat with his family. Why wait for the embargo to be lifted? Smoke La Boheme today. Blending is in our DNA. Saga Cigars, makers of the Saga Golden Age. The Golden Age is a cigar that takes you back to the classic days of cigar smoking. Through the 6 generations of experience by the Reyes family, the Saga Golden Age delivers a timeless blend that uses the nobility of the tobacco to bring you the perfect balance of power and flavor. It narrates better than words the history of a family's tradition in tobacco, delivering a cigar much like the ones they used to smoke in the times of Hemingway. Saga Golden Age is a full-bodied, full-flavored Dominican Puro. With tobaccos from one farm, the blend features a Corojo 2006 wrapper and filler from original Cuban seeds grown in the Dominican Republic. Available in 4 sizes at an affordable price, the Saga Golden Age is sure to please and take you back on a journey to yesteryear. Cigar connoisseurs are already raving about this exquisite cigar, which pays homage to Christopher Columbus's discovery of tobacco during his expedition of the New World. This medium to full-bodied cigar shows off the kind of exquisite construction expected by master blender AJ Fernandez. This gorgeous box-press cigar features a delicious dark chocolate Nicaraguan wrapper that houses a blend of Ometepe, Condega, and Esteli filler, bound with a jalapa binder. Once lit, the perfectly balanced and refined New World gives off a beautiful billow of smoke and hits you with spice and citrus flavors. As you begin to lose yourself in the rich aromas of the New World, flavors become more complex and begin to express hints of hazelnut and coffee. The New World is a first-time collaboration between AJ Fernandez and his father Ishmael, making this cigar stand out in the AJ Fernandez line. To commemorate the union of father and son, AJ Fernandez is offering you this masterpiece at an MSRP of $6, unheard of for a cigar of this caliber. AJ Fernandez invites you to embark on the journey and smoke what he guarantees to be one of the most talked about cigars of the year, the New World, Cigar Journal's #1 cigar of the year. Welcome, everyone, to Stogie Geeks episode 150. I'm, of course, your host, Paul Asadorian, joined in the lines via Skype by Will Cooper. Welcome, Will.
Hey, greetings, Paul.
It is fantastic to be here on episode 150, believe it or not. Of course, we've got some fantastic interviews lined up for you to celebrate this episode. As we like to celebrate, the kind of the round numbers, the 150s, the 200s, the 250s, It's just what we kind of do here when we do podcasts. So not everyone does it. We tend to try and make something special out of, anniversaries and round numbered shows, which I think is nice.
I do too. We lucked out. We got what I call 2 game changers in the industry, Christian and Jonathan, who are really both gracious enough to. Jonathan, actually, we pre-recorded those interviews and we talked to Jonathan before IPCPR, and we actually talked to Christian right after IPCPR. So they gave us a lot of time that you probably would normally not get at the trade show.
We got an hour's worth of time with each of them.
Yep.
Which is amazing. And I have to say there was just one edit in JD's interview that I made. Other than that, they are as you would watch them live. Yep.
And, they're tough to get at scheduling. They were. Absolutely. This was a little bit of a challenge, but I think folks are going to be in for a real treat. And I'm going to tell folks in the JD interview, watch for a world debut of something he's going to show on the
There
screen.
is. There's a world debut
Yeah.
in the JD interview, which will air last on the show. So you have to stay up a little later to watch that one, but it's well worth it. Christian's interview was awesome too. Just to speak to the interviews, so I got to sit down with Christian, and of course Will did too. But for me, I've been good friends with Paul Joya for a long time, and Paul has a very long history and relationship with Christian that goes back many, many years. So a lot of like my roots in cigar smoking are tied to a lot of Christian cigars when he was at Camacho. And I got the opportunity to ask him questions that were burning on my mind for so long. Well, it was so awesome to ask him those questions. And he answered them just awesome. I mean, there was no hesitation. There was no, smoke and mirrors, dude. Like, he answered those questions like a champion. So you definitely want to pay attention to that interview. I asked him about Camacho Liberty. I asked him about the 1118 sizes, all those questions that have come to mind smoking Camacho cigars and CLE cigars over the years. So that was great. Jonathan, man. I mean, Jonathan, as everyone knows, he's the man. I mean, he's a social media maniac. And Drew Estate, of course, I've got a long history with Drew Estate as well. Now, with Jonathan, it was interesting. We didn't focus too much on tobacco. We talked a lot about industry things and trends and things like that. So it's a different interview, but it's extremely entertaining. Jonathan is just dropped some serious exclusives for us on the Stogie Geek show. So I was very happy that he did that. So it was really cool.
And when I say exclusives, I didn't see these at IPCPR or hear anyone talk about it. So I'm going to really tease the folks on this one because I don't think anyone's going to see this one coming. Just back to Christian, Paul, to your credit, before the interview, when we talked to Christian, you asked him if we could talk about Camacho, and he was more than gracious about all the time to talk about that, which I thought was a really, really cool thing that he did.
Because obviously he's not there, and I'm like, Christian, but I have so many questions about when you're at Camacho. He's like, no, dude, that's totally fine.
I
mean, John was the same way. I'm like, dude, I'm going to ask you about the Swisher thing. And I thought his answer to that was, I mean, it made so much sense. He answered it so well, so gracefully. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm going to give Paul a lot of credit. Paul got questions in this interview is what I'll just say.
Yeah, a lot of interviews you see with people, they kind of just let them talk. And, I want to give away all my secrets, but you got to work to keep them on point. So I have my tricks in my bag, Will, from the past 10 years of podcasting that I keep, and to keep people on the interview and keep it moving along. So I did that with Jonathan, and it was so much fun. Very grateful to both of those people for giving us an interview for episode 150. I want to transition a little bit. Will, talk about what you're smoking, because we didn't agree on what to smoke. Being 150, I wanted to do a little celebratory smoke. It was where the direction I went. What direction did you go in?
I went celebratory, and I figured I'd go with the theme of each of the guests. So I kicked it off with that CLE signature that we talk about in the interview. That's the cigar that Christian did out of Miami. I'm going to be honest with you. At first, I didn't get this cigar, but over time, it was one that I saw what people were saying. This is that unbanded cigar, which I really think is probably one of the best cigars to come out under CLE. And I think there's been some good ones. This is just a classic, old school type of cigar is the best way I put it. Really good.
I smoked a CLE Connecticut 1118, which I'll talk about later on in the show. For this segment, I lit up an Opus X Angel Share Robusto. These are very special cigars. They are very rare. And I think the Robusto is one of the better sizes in the line. As everyone knows, I love Opus X cigars. I've talked about them a lot on the Stogie Geeks the past 150 episodes, so I thought I would light one up. This was one of my special cigars that I brought to the studio to smoke, and I'm very much enjoying it.
No, I think that's great. And we have to talk about with some of the stuff that Fuente's coming out with for the 20th anniversary of Opus X this year. There was some stuff unveiled at the show, so we'll have to do that in a news segment probably next month. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Will, do you want to kick it off with our Stogies of the Week?
I sure can. I started out with... it's funny because it seemed like I had to reset my palate this week. It was a little difficult.
Yeah, coming off IPCPR, that's totally understandable.
So this was probably the least amount I've smoked in a while, but I still got 5 sticks in, but a lot of times I'll smoke multiples of the same stick. But I went back to a cigar that I really like. It's a blend by Casa Fernandez. It is the Casa Fernandez Aganorsa Leaf Maduro Ilustre, which is a box press 5x48 that they've released in their Aganorsa Leaf Maduro line. Um, I happen to love what Casa Fernandez does with San Andreas wrapper, and they're the ones who make Illusione. And I think they get how to work with the Mexican wrapper probably better than most factories do, in that they tend to get the other things from that blend right now. It's a San Andreas Maduro wrapper with the Nicaraguan binder and puro. Um, it's a little bit of a, I call it it's a chocolate bar, but it's definitely got some of that Casa Fernandez spice that you're gonna have in that. So if you like that Nicaraguan chocolate notes, the earth notes, but it's gonna have a spice component to this. So it's not gonna be if you don't like spice, you're probably not gonna like this cigar. Solid cigar I have from start to finish. Good medium to full strength, full bodied cigar. It's a little pricey for a cigar of this price of $8.90, so I'd probably say it's worth a $5. Um, Definitely a cigar if you like Nicaraguan Maduros. I'd encourage checking it out.
Recently, Tatuaje and Pete Johnson came out with the Tatuaje Veracruz in a regular production series. They've released several of this particular line of cigar in limited releases. The most notable kind of in my smoking time was the Tatuaje Veracruz Tubos, which came in those very bright red tubos, which I smoked as well this week, Will, which I'll talk about, how that cigar is doing after quite a few years of age since that cigar came out. I was excited for the regular production line, as these Veracruz releases have all been very good. It's kind of an interesting history. You can go read online about some of the Veracruz releases. Will, are there any ones that are notable in your book as far as Tatuaje Veracruz?
I think, it's funny. I always liked that tube one. And I know a lot of people always like the black tube better, but I've always liked that the one he did in the red tube.
See, I was in the red camp all along.
It's underrated. People don't give that cigar the shot it deserves. They all like the black, and I understand it, but that red tube was really good.
I know after that release, you probably have not seen Pete Johnson release a tubo.
No.
Yeah,
I think that's
and I remember Pete saying that after he released those tubos, that he said, that's the last time I've ever done a tubo.
And they're they got to be at least 6 years old. I mean, I think it's
tell
2009.
you what, though, I can't blame him, dude. Tubos, it's like a double-edged sword, right? On the plus side, tubos have this quality where it protects the cigar to a certain extent if you're going to put it in your pocket and take it with you. It changes the aging process, sometimes I think to its benefit. The presentation on a tubo cigar is awesome. Like, the packaging just makes the cigar, even though you can't see the cigar, like, the packaging is just awesome. Like, what you can do with the tubo is really cool. Bright colors, it's got the cedar sleeve inside. Like, it's really cool packaging. On the minus side, if the cigar slides around in the tubo, it can crack. I think that tubos tend to trap more of the moisture inside of the cigar, which can lead to things like mineral deposits, mold inside of it. Some say that in a higher humidity environment, you're more likely to get plume. So you might do that. Again, we're still going to run a segment on all of that. But I've noticed very interesting artifacts on cigars that are stored in tubes that probably fall into one or all of the three categories of plume, mold, or mineral deposits inside of a tube. So it can have a negative consequence being stored in the tube. So I see his point.
The other thing that I see a lot of companies do is when they come out with the tubes, some companies will put an exclusive size in the tube. And I never understood that. I like what Camacho does with theirs, is that when they have a tubo offering, they have the same size untubed. Yeah. I think that's something I just think there's something about seeing the cigar.
Negative consequence also, Will, is that tubos are oftentimes more expensive for the same cigar.
Yes, and they are. I mean, I guess there's a cost associated with them. But yes, that's the other part. But I get why. I think there is a need for tubes in terms of they are great to transport things with.
I think Atabey probably makes the best tubes on the market. It's a premium cigar, super premium cigar anyhow, and the fact that you get the glass tube with it, I think, is a total bonus.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, Paul. I know you're heading on a trip. I would take one of them, and if you get something really good out the Fuente or the Davidoff store, just put it in that tube coming back, and it will stay humidified and it will be well protected.
Right. We
And
got way off on a tangent, Will.
we just sure did.
Because I was talking about the Tatuaje Veracruz. I think it's the number 3. I believe it's the Corona size. I messed up. I bought 2 Coronas and 2 Robustos, and I didn't label them appropriately, and they're very, very close in size. So I apologize. It's either a number 2 or number 3. I believe it was the Corona size that I smoked, but the Corona size really kind of does look like a Robusto. It's not a true Corona size. It's got a little thicker ring gauge. You can, like I said, go look up what the Veracruz sizes are. They're regular production now. I did get a very earthy component when I lit this cigar up. I had a little bit of spice associated with it, but that was somewhat toned down and balanced with the earthy flavor. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this earth flavor, and I'll talk about another cigar that was really over the top on the earth profile, but this cigar started out very earthy. That earthiness transitioned into a lot of sweetness and finished off very nicely. It was interesting. I was having a conversation with John, not John Carney, the other John from La Flor Dominicana. We were talking about how in Brendan next door, all three of us were talking about how cigars, the first 2/3 are awesome, and then the final third is kind of blah. This cigar, of course, does just the opposite. The first third, it's kind of weird, like it's finding its ground, and then it kicks into high gear, and the second third and the final third are very good. In my opinion, that is the sign of a very, very good cigar, one that in that first third, as it ages, is going to get nothing but better, as well as the second third and the final third. I find that cigars that smoke really good in the first 2/3 and poorly in the final third don't really get better with age. But so this cigar, I believe, has some strong aging potential. I think Pete knocked it out of the park with this regular production blend, Will. I thought it was a very, very good cigar, and I'm calling this one a box split with a friend.
It looks like the 4 you were smoking because the
Could have
3 is
been.
this. Yeah, but what's interesting about that Veracruz? It's based off the red label blend.
Yes.
And then people don't notice the red label blend is actually based off the brown label blend.
Oh,
Pete will tell you.
interesting.
So yeah, it all kind of goes back to that brown label, which is kind of the mothership for him. But I agree. I think this was
yeah.
a good move coming out with these.
I agree. And now I also, I have to, I'm still going to talk about this cigar we've been talking about for a while. I don't care. It's episode 150, and it's our show, so we can talk about whatever we want,
Right.
Will. The ash on this cigar was amazing. I mean, it held an ash through the first third entirely. It was this nice, crisp white ash. It wasn't flaky at all. I was smoking it outside, and this thing held the most beautiful ash I've ever seen. And the draw was impeccable. So, props to Pete. Great job, dude.
All right, I thought that was a good move coming out. I think it was long overdue to come out with
I'm
Veracruz.
excited about this cigar. And I see Pete posting on Facebook about, wine and some of the other releases that Tatuaje is coming out with. I'm like, dude, this is a big deal in my book. I think this is a great regular production cigar.
Yeah, I mean it is. I love the banding on this too. I love how he did the band.
Yeah,
I mean,
the whole thing, all the sizes he has, he did good.
yeah. Pete was talking about pipes as well. Yeah, that's
Pipes,
interesting.
yeah, that was the other thing too.
Yeah.
So, Will, back to you.
I ran into at the trade show our friend Robert Wright from Pure Soul Cigars. And the interesting thing is, I had known last year that he split from Christian Aroa, so he kind of went out on his own, but he was still in Christian's booth. So he was because Christian's still making the cigars, and they still have a very good relationship. And so I got to talk to Robert, and Robert gave me a few of his cigars, but I went back and smoked his first cigar, the Pure Soul Nicaragua, which I think is a cigar we've talked about on the show a lot. It's kind of a bit of an underrated cigar.
Well, I agree.
It's a Nicaraguan Puro. And I smoked a 5x50 in the Robusto size. And I've always had this cigar probably around the fiver. I kind of felt that this cigar really is starting to get, it's really starting to come into its own. It's got this wonderful coffee note. And I'm just going to say, this cigar pairs with a black coffee. Perfect. And it's got this creamy component. It's got some pepper spice. It's not the most complex cigar you're going to have, but it's got really good flavor, is what I'm going to tell people. It's about medium to full bodied, so it's not going to overpower you. And I'll tell you what, the construction was and this one I took back from New Orleans. It was stellar. I've now elevated this now to a box split. At the price points around $6 to $7 for these cigars. What a great value for a cigar. And I think this cigar has really come a long way since they first came out.
Nice. Yeah, I liked his cigars as well, Will.
Yep, and I think we'll have him back on the Stogie Geeks. So he's got a barber pole and a Maduro. He announced at the show.
Yeah, can't wait for that.
Yeah, me neither.
I smoked the Elohio Eccentrico number 4, Siri Mi Abuelo 2015.
You were close at Eccentrico number 4, Mi Abuelo.
Mi Abuelo. You said Siri number 4, Siri Mi Abuelo.
That's correct.
Okay.
That was the official name.
Okay. Thank you for correcting that, Will. I was a little pressed for time uploading my Stogies, and you were kind enough to send me this cigar. As you know, I'm a big fan of Elohio. They're sold here in Rhode Island exclusively at the Havana Cigar Club, which is nice because it's right next door, so I can go buy my Elohio really anytime I want, which is awesome. And I've smoked a lot of Elohio. Huge fan. This cigar, I was smoking through the first third thinking, man, I'm not gonna rate this cigar very well at this point. I'm like, it's not going really well. It doesn't know, as Stogie Santa used to say, it doesn't know what it wants to do with itself in the first third. Then at some point, probably just after the first third, started kicking in the high gear. Started having a lot more balance, and having this wonderful sweet flavor that I couldn't place because I only smoked one of them, but had this wonderful sweet flavor which continued all the way down to the nub. And when I finished it, I was nubbing the cigar thinking, wow, this is an awesome cigar. So this is really good. This is another box split in my book. I really enjoyed smoking this cigar. I think that first third will improve over age. This was a show sample. Is that correct, Will?
Kind of. They actually did a launch at a local shop right the day before the show. But these were the first ones that were basically delivered.
Yeah, so I think a little bit of age is going to cure any of those kind of weirdness that happened in that first third. And this is going to be a really good cigar. It's a torpedo cigar with a closed foot. As Elohio is put on its limited Robustos as well, it has the closed foot. As well as its other limited cigar as well also has a closed foot. As everyone knows, I'm a huge fan of the closed foot as well. And this is a good cigar. Everyone should try it.
Yeah, it was funny. When I got that cigar, I had it in my personal travel humidor, and I had to send Paul the cigars for Barry Stein last week. So I happened to have Barry's cigars in the travel humidor, and I said, let me just get at least one of the IPCPR samples to Paul.
No, I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but the funny thing is, that's the fourth Eccentrico, but it's the first one without the fantail on it. They opted not to put, because they wanted, Mi Abuelo means grandfather, and it's a tribute to grandparents is what that cigar is.
Yep. Cool. Back to you, Will.
So this was kind of one of those cigars that you kind of inspired me to try, and it was the New World Connecticut, AJ Fernandez's New World Connecticut in the Corona Gorda.
Interesting to what you have to say about this cigar, Will.
So, in a nutshell, I know you were not as big a fan of the Toro. I like the Toro. I still like the Toro, but you were kind of telling me go smoke this Corona Gorda, and I did. And it's a U.S. Connecticut shade, San Andreas Maduro, U.S. Connecticut shade wrapper, San Andreas Mexican binder. Fillers, Nicaraguan and Brazilian, 5.5 by 46, around a $6 price point. Paul, you were dead on about this. Is all I'm going to say. This cigar, in just my opinion, in that Corona Gorda format, it comes all together. Bella to ball size, without a question. It has those creamy notes that are in there. It's not going to be an overpowering cigar by any means. I think the flavors were a little more balanced on this cigar. I got a slight citrus component on this cigar, but it wasn't. It was actually a positive. It burned really good. Actually, the one issue I had with the Toro, I've had the burn has gone a little wonky with that one. But I agree with you on this one. It's, I think, great morning smoke. Mild, but very mild cigar, too, by AJ Fernandez, and not overly peppery. It's a box-worthy cigar.
This cigar is very interesting, Will. First and foremost, I love this cigar. I bought a box of them this week because I love to smoke them so much. Now, AJ Fernandez is a sponsor, And obviously, Stogie Geeks is a business, but out of my own pocket, I bought a box of these cigars as a testament to just how good they are and how much I love to smoke them. I smoked through many of the other sizes in the line. I think, as you said, Will, this is the belle of the ball. And I absolutely love the cigar. I could smoke one of these every morning. And I've got a lot of my favorite morning smokes, and this has firmly planted itself in the rotation as one of my favorite morning smokes to have. I mean, it's just got everything going for it. The construction is impeccable. There are a lot of Connecticut cigars that I like, Will, and sometimes the construction doesn't hold up when I buy a box of them. I mean, this one, I've smoked 4 or 5 of these at least, maybe more, and I just, I can't say enough good things about this cigar. I love it. It goes perfect with coffee in the morning. It's the perfect size, the burn, draw, construction, flavors, complexity. It's got everything going for it in a Connecticut cigar. I think it's amped up enough where your traditional Connecticut smokers are still going to like it, Will. I don't think the Corona size is as mild as maybe you just kind of alluded to. I think it's got a little punch to it, and I think it's really good.
I think in terms of body, in terms of how it weighs on the palate, it's not going to give you a nicotine buzz, is what I was kind of saying. But I agree with you. Actually, you do get a little more of that flavor in on the palate with the small ring gauge. And like I said, it definitely comes together with that Corona Gorda.
Now, my buddy Dave that works at Mr. J Savannah Smoke Shop also kind of put his stamp of approval on this cigar, and he's very much a boutique blend smoker. Loves those rare, hard-to-find cigars, and when he said, he's like, that cigar is great, I was kind of taken, I'm like, wow, like you smoked a regular production AJ Fernandez in the Connecticut, it just didn't fit his profile. He's like, no, dude, that cigar is great. I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite size. So that was kind of a testament to just how well AJ Fernandez did in blending the cigar.
Yeah, and I think it gave him, he's got the San Latano Connecticut's and the Oval and the Requiem. This is just, like I said, it's a different Connecticut. It's a little more traditional in a lot of ways, I think.
It's got some great sweetness, though. I think that's what separates it apart from the San Latano. I find that the sweetness profile is just really knock it out of the park in this cigar.
Yeah, I know Stogie Santa wasn't a fan of the San Latano Connecticut, but I always found that original San Latano Connecticut to be a little groundbreaking towards of creating a spicier Connecticut. You know, I always thought so. I always kind of gave that, and I always liked that line too. I thought it was a really good line.
Well, if you like a spicier Connecticut, you're going to gravitate towards I think the AJ Fernandez San Latano. You're going to gravitate towards some of the My Father Connecticut's to get that spicier profile. To me, that's just not what I'm looking for in a morning cigar, in a Connecticut cigar.
No. This is, like I said, it's traditional. I mean, it's a $6 price point on these things. You can't.
Great price point.
And I'm not knocking Macanudos or Monte Cristos, but you could, if you're a Macanudo or Monte Cristo smoker, this is a cigar you absolutely have to try.
No, I agree.
And it's different. It's not the same as those either.
I smoked a Crown Heads La Imperioso Magicos.
Yep.
I find it interesting they call this Magicos, Will. Because I like the Cohiba Magicos, which is a very magical cigar. The Crown Heads La Imperiosos Magicos is a good cigar, though. This was one, though, for me, Will, that it did really well in the first 2/3, and for me kind of fell apart in the final third. And, we've made that comparison in shows in the past when we review cigars that say, it should be like music. If you start off really strong and you finish really strong, people are going to kind of forget what happens in the middle. This cigar just didn't finish very strong for me. It was good. There was a lot of sweetness in those first 2/3, but that final third kind of fell apart for me. Therefore, I'm giving it a rating of a 5.
You know what blend that is, right?
That's the I can't think of the name of it.
Las Calaveras.
Yes,
but
I kind of felt the same way about the Las Calaveras too.
Yeah, and I'll defend. And I've been critical of a lot of things that John Huber people know, but and he got criticized for bringing back this blend. But I'm going to give him credit. He came out with 4 new sizes in this blend. So when you come out with new sizes, they're different cigars, and I gave him credit on it. I was not a fan of the Las Calaveras blend. I thought it was one-dimensional. But again, I haven't had it in this size, so I think size could matter here.
Right. Yeah, I would try it in this size, Will. I mean, sometimes the finish will change on a cigar, although it's rare. This was a show sample that was gifted to me by Todd from Havana Cigar Club. It was one of his more favorite cigars from the show. So,
But I can see Todd liking that blend. Knowing Todd's
yeah,
profile,
it's very medium. It's very medium body, full flavored. Certainly the first 2/3, but I would try it again and see how it did in that final third as well. Back to you, Will.
So back to AJ Fernandez. I think one of the hottest cigars at the show was his new release, the Enclave. And when I say hot, I mean they ran out of samples the first day or the first or second day, and I know that they had to actually get some overnighted Sunday night from Monday. So I managed to get a couple of them. I have some coming your way, and they actually also arrived at my local shop already. So I've smoked through several of the Toro size of the Enclave, and this is a real different AJ Fernandez blend. It's a Ecuadorian Habano Rosado wrapper, Cameroon binder, which you don't normally hear about on an AJ stick, and then he's got his own AJ Fernandez Nicaraguan, and he's also growing some Piloto Cubano. I don't know if that's from Nicaragua. It just says AJ Fernandez Piloto Cubano. I meant to ask them that at the show, and I forgot. I smoked it. It was a 6x52 Toro, and they're going for these value price cigars in that $6 to $7 range. I'll say this: this is another home run by AJ Fernandez. It's got a nice natural tobacco mixed with that chocolate component, a little bit of cream and cedar there. It does a lot of change-ups on this. It's a stronger cigar than probably the New World, regular New World. So it's probably more stronger and fuller. So I'd put this at the medium to full, just short of full. The construction was impeccable. Show sample or not. I mean, when I say this was like a set it and forget it burn on this thing, I didn't have to do anything on it. It's got the second half is going to get spicier though, and I wonder if that's a little bit of a factor being a show sample. But I'll tell you what, this. I think you're going to like this cigar. I have it as another box worthy. It's not a morning cigar, is what I'll tell you though. You don't want to smoke this one in the morning. Not overpowering, but again. And the reaction I've seen from people at the trade show with this cigar was very, very favorable. It wasn't like one of those cigars where everyone, there was mixed reaction. Everyone seemed to be really enjoying this cigar.
Excellent. No, I enjoy stronger cigars as well, Will, as everyone knows.
I don't want to say
I get
it's
a reputation
overpowering.
because I do like just to smoke in the morning, but I will talk about a cigar this week that I think nearly killed me. I think I was ready to go to the emergency room and smoke this cigar. And it was very good. I think that just the nicotine content was off the charts in this one and just demolished me. And like I said, the flavors were just awesome, but it demolished me, which is kind of rare for a cigar to do that. Because even the Neanderthal, that didn't demolish me. I'm like, wow, it's a strong cigar, but it was good. I didn't get sick or anything. This cigar, literally, it went into complete nicotine coma.
But the one last week when you smoked that La Aurora broadleaf in a 58 ring gauge, that was a powerhouse.
Yeah, that one it's weird how different cigars will present nicotine in different ways. I think a lot depends on how much you ate that day as well. That was a really strong cigar too. Yeah. So I smoked so we'll talk about that one as the show goes on. Tatuaje Veracruz Red Tubo. So this is the tubo we were talking about earlier. This one was really good. It lost some over time, Will. I would say if you have these to smoke them, as it seemed to have lost a little bit. It used to have this nice spice component that made it really nice and complex. It lost a lot of that, and the flavors were somewhat muted. I would say today, as it stands, it's a $5. So I think if you can find some and buy a couple, sure, I would to smoke it, but it's not as good as when it first came out.
That's disappointing to hear. Actually,
it is. I know. I was hoping this one would really get really awesome, but
I was just telling you how it was. Yeah, it was a great cigar.
And it's not a powerhouse. It wasn't a powerhouse cigar when it came out. The Black Tubo was a much stronger cigar when it first came out, but the reds have definitely lost something over time. So I would definitely smoke these. It was good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I smoked the whole thing. It was good. I just think it's kind of in a $5. It is in a $5 category as it stands today.
Yep. Interesting. I'll have to give that one another whirl.
Back to you, Will.
You and I smoked this cigar a couple weeks ago. I went back and smoked it again. It was from our friends at Moya Ruiz Cigars, the Rake in the cut size. I'm really enjoying these cigars, and this was another cigar that had a real positive reaction from people at the trade show. They kind of unveiled it. It's that Connecticut broadleaf with the four Lajero leaves in the filler, which you would never know that this thing has four Lajero leaves.
No, it wasn't a nicotine powerhouse at all.
No, it wasn't. It had a lot of what I term, and I talked about this before, these compound flavors, which are like flavors that have different components to them that are similar. Like there was this mocha note that I get a little bit of the coffee and I get a little bit of the chocolate. And then I got this mixed fruit note, which sometimes was a little cherry and sometimes was more of like a berried note. The pepper kind of had a little bit of black pepper and white pepper. A lot of complexity. This is a cigar that I actually had a chance to sit down and smoke uninterrupted, and you really start. I thought I was overanalyzing it, but I don't think I was. Great cigar. It is. I'd say it's about a medium to full. So you're not going to really pick up the four Lajero leaves. It's not going to knock you on your butt by any means. Construction was excellent. I enjoy. It's a box press Robusto, which is real nice. It's a box worthy cigar right now. In my book, it's a little bit on the. I'll say this: it's priced a little high, and I almost went down to a box split. It's $10.25, but it's such a different cigar. It's one of the better cigars I've had this year. I'm really enjoying this cigar a lot.
Now, I liked the Rake a lot, and I thought it was a great cigar, fantastic. And then to hear it generate a lot of buzz at the show kind of validated what I thought, because I only smoked one of them on the show, which, like you said, Will, you're kind of distracted. So I'm happy to hear that it got great buzz at the show and that you really liked it, because I think they did a fantastic job blending the cigar.
Yeah, and there are cigars there's a lot of cigars I smoke at the show, and we talk all week. There are a lot of those cigars that are divided camps in terms of, we have mixed opinions, but these are the ones I've been talking about just seem to have more of a consensus here.
Yep. I smoked a CLE Connecticut 1118. This cigar was interesting, Will. I can't, when I smoke the cigar, I can't help but compare it to the Camacho Connecticut 1118, which they don't make anymore. And we talked to Christian about the 1118 size, and that's what kind of forced me to go back. This cigar is a lot better than when I first smoked these when they came in. In fact, I requested that Havana Cigar Club bring this size in so that I could try it, and they were like, yeah, well, we'll bring it in. I mean, not just for me, but for other people as well. Because I told them the story behind the Camacho 1118 and how well it used to sell and how I used to buy boxes of them. And there were other people in local shops here in Rhode Island that would buy boxes of them. And I'd smoke them in the morning while fishing and the whole deal. And I smoked this one in the morning. It was really good, Will. And it did this kind of weird thing. And I don't normally describe cigars like this. It had kind of two flavor profiles going on. And they didn't necessarily blend all that well together, but it had kind of this weird flavor profile that it was just I don't know, it was, I gotta smoke another one to kind of pinpoint it, but it was just kind of like a different kind of flavor profile. There was some tobacco leaves in there that were leaving kind of like an aftertaste, kind of like a strange-ish kind of flavor to it, but in conjunction with that, it had this awesome sweetness flavor that persisted throughout. And the sweetness flavor did some kind of change-ups throughout. As that shape of that cigar changes, because the 1118 is kind of like a slight figurado, it made some change-ups through that sweetness, and the sweetness flavor was really good. I'm like, wow, I really like this cigar, but it had some other components that just really didn't seem to be melding together for me in my palate. My rating on it is a 5 because of that. I think if I don't know, they could tweak the blend or something was going on in the cigar that didn't fully kind of help it make that transition into, this kind of beautiful melding of tobacco. There was that kind of weird flavor that persisted that I could pick out. Like it was almost like two things going on that were very consistent and distinct throughout smoking this cigar. I really love the sweetness flavor in these cigars. I would keep 5 in my humidor and I would smoke them. I don't know if age will help this tobacco blend together a little better, but that was my assessment of the cigar. Have you smoked this one, Will?
But not the 1118. But I know what you're saying about there is something different about that Connecticut.
Mm.
And it's kind of I can't put my finger. I know what you're saying. If it's a different Connecticut, is what I'll tell people. And I think I would have loved to have asked Christian that question. I probably would have it about a fiver as well.
Yeah,
It's not a bad cigar. It's not a bad cigar.
Smoke the 1118. No, it's a good cigar. Like I said, those sweetness flavors were so awesome, and I would go back to that cigar just to get those sweetness flavors again. And just the smoking experience in that size is equally as enjoying as when I used to smoke those Camacho 1118s and a lot of those Liberty sizes. But something in this blend just didn't fully appeal to my palate. It was one of the more kind of unique experiences in a cigar that I've had in some time.
Normally with these Honduran Connecticut's, I get this marshmallowy taste. I didn't quite get that on this one, and it was almost like there was an astringent component to it.
Yeah,
from what I remember.
There was an astringent component to it, but there was an awesome, like...
sweetness.
Like a bready kind of sweetness to it.
Yes.
Which was great. So
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I long for that Camacho Connecticut 1118 experience again. I really do. I hate to, Christian's a great guy and Camacho's doing great things now, but I miss that cigar a lot. So
I mean, they didn't reblend the Connecticut, but
but they got rid of that 1118 size.
Yeah, they I don't know if they did. Did they?
They did.
That's a shame.
I know. I've been saddened about it since they came out with the kind of repackaged Camacho.
Interesting.
Back to you, Will.
I'm done. So
I smoked a warped El Oso Mama. This is the Lancero size.
This is the Lancero, yep.
Ah, great cigar. The La Colmena and the El Oso are made in the El Titan de Bronze factory. And they've got both those cigars kind of had this component that Kyle Gellis, right? That's warped. Kyle, is a huge fan of Cuban cigars and blends his cigars in that Cuban-esque profile. And we say that about a lot of cigars, but dude, Kyle knocks it out of the park. And I've only smoked his blends that have come out of El Titan de Bronze. I haven't smoked his other ones that come out of Casa Fernandez. What are those again, Will?
The Florida Valley.
Yeah.
Yep, that's one of the lines. There's a few other lines, but the Florida Valley is probably the one that everyone knows.
Yeah, I haven't smoked those yet, and they're definitely on my list. But the La Colmena and the El Oso, they're just so unique. This Lancero was just awesome. It had that Cuban earthiness, right? It's not a strong earthiness, but it's that hint of earthiness coupled with the cedar and some sweetness. Awesome cigar. I loved it. I called it a box split.
This is the one El Oso I haven't smoked, and it's on my bucket list because this is actually.
I like it better than the Petit Corona because I smoked some Petit Coronas.
Different blend. It's a different wrapper.
Is it totally? Yeah, because I was going to say they're like totally different cigars.
Yeah, this is the San Andreas wrapper he's got on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's on the Petit Corona? Do you remember?
That's a Ecuadorian wrapper.
Yeah, because they're totally different. And the Petit Corona is good. Don't get me wrong. I much prefer this Lancero.
And everyone has said basically when you look at the El Oso line, people said that's the this is the one.
Yeah, no, I agree because I think I smoked the Torpedo in this blend as well.
Yep.
And the Lancero is one that sticks out in my mind. Where if I saw some, I would probably, would I rate it box split? I would probably buy a box, to be honest with you, because it was good.
Yeah, and we're gonna have Kyle back. Kyle, I spoke to Kyle. He did say he'd come back on the show, so we'll get him later this fall probably.
I'm glad, Will, because Warp Cigars is not distributed in the Northeast at all. And when I did the interview with Kyle, I hadn't smoked any of his cigars. And now that I have, I feel like we could have a much deeper conversation about his cigars.
Yeah, and actually I talked to him a little about that, and I think now that I think we got to we'll probably smoke some of those Casa Fernandez Nicaraguan lines too, because they're completely different than that, but they're both really good.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked in a previous interview. You can go look it up with Kyle. We talked a lot about Cuban cigars and kind of the influence and a little bit about the brand. I feel like when we bring Kyle back, we can kind of dig into the tobacco and his blends and the flavor profiles because I think you and I both will have smoked a lot more of his cigars since then.
Yeah, I mean, he's really I mean, when we had him on, no one probably knew who he was.
And he was busy at the show, you said.
Yeah, in fact, he was slammed last year. He was slammed this year. His booth had to be in one of the worst locations, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I mean, and him and Steve Saka had the worst booth locations, but they had the most traffic.
The flavors that you get from these Warp cigars, Will, are it's all about flavor. It's kind of like Luge, right, in the sense that Kyle and I think Luge both, they really blended with flavor in mind. There's none of that other like spice, peppery, aroma kind of components. They blended like for flavor, and Kyle knocked it out of the park as well as Luge with that flavor component. I want to compare the two, but in terms of like the style of blending for that flavor component, dude, Kyle is a master at it. And some of his cigars have had construction issues with, and I smoked them anyway because the flavors are just so freaking awesome, dude. And, I understand it's a handmade product, whatever. I'm not, taking off points for that. The flavor in his cigars, and again, I've got a lot of experience with La Colmena and El Oso. The flavors are just out of this world, and I'm not surprised he was busy at the show. I'm not surprised that a lot of my friends, like Dave, that Mr. J's is another one. He's a huge fan of La Colmena. He's like, "Oh, dude, they're awesome!" And like he was like, "I'm like, dude, but I can't get them around here." He's like, "Yeah, you got to go to like these other webs." He was giving me like websites to go buy them, and that's where I picked up a few more because I genuinely like the cigars. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know Corona down in Florida is where
That's where I got some of them. When I was in Corona in Florida, I picked some up.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to my buddy H who works there too. He's an awesome guy. He got me when I was down at. You haven't smoked that Don Renato, which was they released it at the show in full production, but it was very limited last year. That is my opinion, the best cigar Warped has done, and I will believe when you smoke that, you'll say the same thing because it's that El Titan de Bronze again coming out of there. And it's a flavor bomb.
Nice. Let's see. The second to last cigar on my list is a Viaje white label. This was like a Corona size cigar, short Corona.
Was it a 5x48? Would you say?
Yeah.
It's the Viaje Winter Classic.
Winter Classic.
That is an underrated blend, by the way. I like.
I tell you what. Viaje is Andre Farkas, right?
Yep.
Okay. Andre did a fantastic job blending the cigar for, I think, a very specific palate. If you like earthiness in your cigars, this is the cigar for you. I mean, it's earth and sweetness, primarily earth, coupled with a little bit of sweetness, and it is just such an overwhelming earthy sweetness. And if you like that, you're going to love this cigar. I'm kind of like on the fence, Will, with that earthy sweetness. For me, it was a little too much earth, but to take flavors like earth and sweetness and bring it to that level, I really have to give Andre props. Like, he packed so much flavor and character in this cigar that it was off the charts, dude. Now, I'm rating it a 5 because, the earthiness is kind of, not really my thing. But it was a good cigar, and especially in the first third, that really earthy and sweetness just comes to life and wakes up your senses. It's unmistakable in how bold that earthy sweetness is. So I gave it a 5, but I tell you what, if you like the earthy flavor profile, you're going to love this cigar. I mean, you're going to rate it probably fight Chuck Norris if you like that earthiness. That's how good this cigar was.
That cigar, just so you know, was a one-time release. The Winter Classic came out in 2012. Mm-hmm. It's 3.5 years old. So what you had, it had to be 3.5 years old.
Yep.
Andre never brought it back. It had a little more to it, and it did get very earthy. There's no question about that.
Yes.
But like I said, if I'm going to go for an earthy, and there's a lot of earthy cigars I won't go for, this is one I would reach for. I kind of would like I see this one come back.
I have another one. I'll send it to you so you can smoke it and try it.
Oh, I'd love to, because I'm out of them.
Yeah, so one of the local shops, I won't get into the politics behind it, but, some of the local shops around here, one of them actually used to carry a lot of Viaje. They don't anymore. So I have like this huge back catalog of Viaje because every time they get something new in, I'd buy a few of them every time they came in. So I've got like a huge catalog of Andre's cigars. And I kind of miss it, right? Because Andre loves to come out with new blends all the time, and I love to try them because it was like you never knew what you were going to get. And I think that was a lot of fun. And I think it was, and we've had Andre on the show twice, I think now, right?
Yep.
And, some of Andre's blends are really awesome when they first come out. And then, they start to decline a little bit in age, so you got to smoke them. Some of his blends are kind of okay when they come out, and then they get a lot better. So, to me, having a lot of Andre cigars is a good thing because I never know what they're going to do, and it's a lot of fun to smoke all of his different blends.
Andre gave me something at the show. I think I might have mentioned it last week. It's a box press. He wouldn't tell me anything about it other than, I hope this cigar comes out because it's really good. Nice. Is all I'm going to say. So, yeah, and it was like the unknown. He said, I'm not telling you anything. I just want you to smoke it. Yeah. And I sat in the booth and spoke with him. And he's always generous with his time, by the way. So.
Yeah, so every once in a while I like to bring out a Viaje cigar and talk about it because I have so many, and I have my favorites too as well. Which some of them are like Fight Chuck Norris or borderlining Oasis on some of his cigars. So don't certainly appreciate his blending skills because he's had some absolute grand slam, not even home runs, dude, grand slams in his blends.
Yeah. I haven't smoked any of his PDR stuff coming out of PDR yet, and I have some now to smoke.
Yeah, I'd like to try those.
Yeah, I picked some up at my local shop, so that has them. So
my last cigar is a Padron Family Reserve 50 Years Natural. Dude, this cigar sent me into like nicotine coma. I mean, I don't know if I was smoking it too fast because it was really good. I mean, I think I rated it a 5 probably because I was still in my nicotine coma and I couldn't come out of it. I had to drink like a whole bottle, not a can, like a whole bottle of ginger ale to get enough sugar in me to counteract the nicotine sickness. I mean, dude, the room was spinning. It was spinning. I smoked 3/4 of this cigar and I thought I was going to die. Like I literally thought I was going to have to call 911. I don't know what it was. This cigar has been sitting in my humidor since Father's Day. In my humidor since Father's Day. And it didn't taste over the top nicotine strength. Like it was really good. It had some spice and sweetness mixed together as a lot of the natural wrappers tend to do in Padron, right? They tend to take that kind of sweetness component and couple it with a little bit of spice and a lot of other complex flavors. And this cigar did that. Super ultra premium cigar and a super ultra premium, rating in my book. But I think the rating kind of took a hit because I was just ill after smoking.
That was your cigar of the year last year, wasn't it?
I
thought the Natural was your cigar of the year.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
No, that was probably the 85th Natural.
Okay.
85th Natural, I reached into my humidor well and I took the last one out of the whole box I bought. So I think you're thinking of the 85th Natural as one of my most favorite cigars of all time. Yeah.
A lot of people, I smoked that Natural. I don't remember it having a nicotine buzz like that.
I don't either, but let me tell you, I smoked a lot of cigars and I've got a lot of nicotine sickness, and this was nicotine sickness, like, unbelievable. I don't know what it was about this cigar, dude. It just threw me through a loop.
Interesting.
And the 50-year Maduro was very strong as well. I don't know if you smoked those, Will. That had a lot of nicotine in it, too.
Yeah, those I remember being a little more potent, and they needed to settle down.
Yeah, and the Natural may fall into that category. I would let these cigars age. And if you're going to buy these, I would let them sit for at least 6 months to a year before you start smoking them. That'd be my recommendation.
I'm going to have to try that now and see.
Smoke it slow. I could have been smoking it too fast because it was, like I said, it was really good. I mean, it's a Padron. It was awesome, right? And
it was burning fine. You didn't have a combustion issue? Because some of the combustion issues could do that.
No, it was burning awesome. It tasted great. Maybe I just smoked it too fat. Maybe I didn't eat enough today. It was probably, I didn't eat a whole lot today. So I just, threw me through a loop. Weird. Okay. Still a good cigar, though. I would try it again, but after that experience, I would let it rest for a really long time. Or eat a really big meal before I try it again. So that's it. I'm out.
I'm out. Yep.
We're going to take a short break, come back, and talk about Debonair Ideal. So stay tuned. We still got a lot more on episode 150 of the Stogie Geeks.